everyone, welcome or welcome back to my knitting podcast. I'm Suni, the maker behind ippeun here on YouTube, also available on Instagram and Ravelry with the same username. We're on episode 2 already, a little bit faster than I expected. I will probably do another episode in 2 weeks or so, but after that it'll probably go back to the initially planned once a month-ish. But yes, really quick before I get started is I tried to do a few changes to make the sound a little bit better. Turned off my air purifier this time, and I'm using a fancy mic, you might see in the corner right there. So it should be a lot easier to hear me and understand what I'm saying, hopefully. But yes, and also apologies. I do have properly written down notes this time, but they are on my monitor over here. So if I'm looking there a lot, that's why I'm looking at. But hopefully I won't forget to mention the things I want to mention. We'll see. And really quick, the final thing is following the same structure. So it's going to start with what I'm wearing, then anything I finished recently, then what I'm currently working on, and then finally any recent yarn acquisitions or future kind of project plans. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm wearing a crochet piece actually. It's something that I made a very long time ago. Ugh. It's got a little split hem. Ignore my very obvious loungewear shorts. Okay, this piece technically I have many minor grievances with. First of all, I made this at least a year ago, if way more than that. I'm not sure exactly when, because I made this before I started using Ravelry, before I had my little even just for personal reference Instagram account that I was posting my finished pieces on. So I have no idea when I made this. Could have been summer last year, could have been spring last year, I don't know. But regardless, this was made I believe using a YouTube tutorial. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I did. I'll link one that when I was going through my YouTube search history, or my YouTube saved crochet playlist. I think it's the one by Carlos. I'll put the name. I'm sorry for the pronunciation, but I think I followed that video to make this. But yeah, so since I made this so long ago, and before I was really into knitting, crocheting, especially knitting, and I definitely I didn't know anything about different types of fibers. I made this with big twist yarn, I think. I'm not even sure the colorways. It's a black and a pink. It's a pretty hot pink actually. Let me do that. Yeah, there you go. Okay, it's a pretty hot pink. I like the color combination. I think it's cute. It's not necessarily as much my style, I think, as a lot of the stuff I make are, but it's not bad. I think it's objectively just nice. But because it is acrylic, I don't really like the way it feels. It does wash pretty well. I'm not sure if I've washed it yet. I think I made it, I tried it on, and I did not like the fit of it at all. So I put it off to the side until literally today, when I saw it inside my bin, kind of on my bookshelf, and I was like, I'm going to try it on just in case to see because I was going to frog it and just reuse the yarn for something else. And I actually didn't like I didn't mind the fit of it. I didn't dislike it as much as I remembered disliking it. However, once I move my hair, you can see the collar is so long and thick that it comes up at the neck, and it almost looks like some sort of costume or cosplay, which is, it's not a horrible look, but it's not what I like. And when I put my hair down, you can't really notice, and it's fine, and it's just a really hot pink and black houndstoooth vest, which, not bad. It's kind of cute. Although I think if I were to try to wear something underneath this, because it is pretty thick, and because I didn't cut the yarn to change color each time I was walking around, I just kept it kind of hidden and looped under the working yarn. It is a little bit thicker, and I think it would probably fit weird whatever I wear underneath, and also it wouldn't be very comfortable, and I'd be sweating horribly. I'm a little warm right now, and I probably shouldn't be wearing anything yarn or with any sort of fiber, but besides cotton. This was one thing I had, because my main summer wears I need to wash, so this is the only thing that was technically clean. But it does fit okay. I don't mind it. The pattern, I can't remember exactly. I think it's one size. It might be adjustable, obviously, depending on the yarn and the hooks you use, but they kind of gave exact or specific numbers of like chain 60, do this many rows. So you would have to be a little bit more familiar with crochet and getting different, kind of adjusting different patterns if you wanted to be able to customize the sizing a little bit. Okay, and now for recently finished, I have only one thing, but it is something I'm very proud of and I'm excited to share. It is my step-by-step sweater by Florence Mailer, or Handmade by Florence, here on YouTube and Instagram. She has a knitting podcast, which I would highly recommend. I mentioned, if you watched the previous episode, the first episode, that I wanted to knit it, but the pattern hadn't been released yet. And it was a shame because I was going to be out of town, and when I came back, I'd be focusing on test knits. And I also wasn't sure what I was going to be working on when I was on vacation because I didn't have anything upcoming and I had run out of yarn for my test knit, so it's kind of stuck. The day I posted the video, I think, and the day before I actually was on holiday, Florence released the pattern, and I had some extra yarn lying around. The yarn that I believe I mentioned the last time that I was originally going to pair with the along with Vegana silk mohair to make another sweater number 18, and the color match didn't work out well, so the double merino that I was planning to use for that has just kind of been sitting off to the side, just chilling. So I decided to make the step-by-step sweater with that yarn, get it out of my stash, use it up, and I did. So I was out of town for 7-ish days, about 7 days, technically a little less maybe, and I worked on this when I was out of town basically. So here it is, nice and pretty. There you go, can you see? Yeah. So I am very happy with how it turned out. The pattern is a very simple raglan, but it's pretty, it's nice. The collar I did was the double folded hem, I think that's what it's called. So you knit twice the length of what you want, and then this is the first time I've used this technique to make it. So once you create double the length that you want, you pick up stitches from the cast on edge, and then you knit them together, and then you keep going top down and you work the rest of the body. It was a little confusing at first, and I was a little paranoid about making sure that all of my kind of like ribbing lined up with each other on the inside and out. But it wasn't bad, and I actually really liked it. And I also did the optional German short rows, which I also really liked. I think it was good for, I'm really glad that she included it in the pattern. I love German short rows. I think they look best on me, and just objectively most of the time they make a piece look a little bit more like finished, fancy, I don't know. And okay, so besides that, I think I've only made very minor modifications, not including stuff like adjusting body sleeve length. Was that I did half twisted rib for wherever it showed up, so around the collar and then on the sleeve cuff and bottom hem, which I think makes it look a little bit neater. I think it's like my ideal sort of ribbing because the knit stitches are twisted. That vertical line is a little bit cleaner and more defined, I guess, which I think looks nice, but it still has plenty of the stretch from the regular pearls. And one last thing that I want to mention is, oh yeah, so I decreased a little bit right before the ribbing for the sleeve because these sleeves are actually a little bit wider than I think most sleeves are, or I'm not sure about most sleeves, but a lot of the sleeve widths for many other sweaters I've made, especially recently, it could be a trend with certain designers, or maybe I don't know, current trend in general, but there's a lot of sweater patterns that have sort of an oversized boxy body and pretty fitted sleeves, and I know Florence mentioned that she doesn't like that, and she doesn't like how it, I guess, works on her, and that shows in this pattern. These sleeves are definitely not the like fitted type. They're loose. I think they're like the same amount of loose compared to your actual arm as the torso is to your body, so it's kind of like all equally oversized everywhere, which I think is nice. But when I was working up these sleeves, I was a little worried because I was like, man, these are a lot of stitches. Is this going to be too big? Is it going to be like weirdly floppy in the arm area? Especially like this area, I wouldn't want like a whoo bingo arms effect. And I was a little worried, so that's why I did only a few decreases really, right before the ribbing started. I don't even know if you can tell or if it made a difference, but I like how it turned out, so I'm going to say I made the right choice. I'm not entirely sure. And also because I wanted to make sure that when I rolled my sleeves up, that it would actually like stay in place, nice and snug-ish, because in some of Florence's finished pictures of the samples that she made, it looked like the cuff was fairly loose around her hand because it did end up pretty long. And I don't mind that, but I mind it when I fold it up, roll it up or fold it up. If it doesn't stay in place, that's kind of like an ugh. So yeah, decreases for that, and then the ribbing stayed. And overall, that's I think the only things I have to mention about the pattern and how I made it. I do want to say about my yarn choice, because you can see that it is pretty drapey and kind of holey. Like, you can see the light from the window through the both sides of the fabric technically, is because I used only one strand of I held single the double merino by Along with Anna. Oh, colorway is royal. I should have put that there, but just in case I mention it again. And I think I did get gauged with the recommended needles, but I think that if I were to be able to do it again, I would pair it with a mohair, because usually the sweaters I like to make and I especially like to wear are like solid, like you can't see through it. That's just what I prefer. But I don't necessarily mind it with this. I don't mind the feel of this, the feeling of this yarn and the kind of fabric that it produced. And I think that because it is pretty like loose and there's a pretty good air circulation, it'd be really good for the transition season, which is coming up. Excited for fall, or even just to like layer with other things when it is much colder. So I'm okay with it. I don't really mind, but I think it is something that I would keep in mind because I will be making the sweater again, more on that later. But it's something I'm going to be keeping in mind for that. But overall, I'm very happy with it, and that is all for the finished pieces. And now for works in progress. I mentioned this last time. This is the Ramage pullover, and I've made progress because my yarn, well, okay, so I will show it first. There's a little bit more of the body, and both sleeves are done. Yay! And I'm very close to be finishing up with the body. I'm hoping maybe I'll finish it today. I'm not sure, but I had a question about the some of the instructions for the split hem, so I'm waiting for the designer to get back to me on that. And until then, I would just be very excited to finish this, and then I can block it. So when I came back from holiday, I was able to go to my local yarn store, like literally I don't know, within the hour that I came back home, and I went to buy more yarn. They only had more of the contrast color. They didn't have any more of the main color, which I think is because I cleared out their stash when I was last there, which wasn't too long ago, before I spread through that. So I had to buy more online, and I was waiting for it, and it came yesterday. Came yesterday afternoon, I think? Or evening. I got it yesterday evening, and I just sped through it because I really want to get it done. The deadline is not too far away. It's early October, but I think I'll have plenty of time, and I would like to finish it a little bit early. Regardless, anyways, the skeins that I bought online, unfortunately, are a different dye lot, and it is noticeable. I don't think, obviously very poor lighting you would be able to tell, but in any halfway decent lighting, you can see there's a slight difference, especially for the body, because I finished off one of the sleeves with the new yarn, and then I did the entire other sleeve, starting with that different dye lot. So for those, I don't think it's as bad because it's pretty consistent, but for the body, because I had a decent chunk of it done, and then I just added on to it, I think you can see kind of like a sort of line in between. kind of a bummer. There's not really anything I can do about it. And I didn't really want to frog a bunch of the rows I had worked on the body to try and do like an alternating skein method. I was just pretty tired by that point, and I kind of want to just get this done. So that's that, but not too big of a deal. And another thing about this pattern, and this is more of a me working on it kind of issue slash thing to note, is the recommended needle sizes that I think the pattern suggests. I technically didn't really have in my interchangeable needle set, but thankfully with the yarn that I selected, my gauge ended up being more within the range of what I did have. Except, so it has 3 different needle sizes. So there's the main size that you use for most of the body, the sleeves, all that. The ribbing uses a size smaller, and then the colorwork uses a size larger. So thankfully I had in my needle set for the regular size and then the colorwork according to my gauge and what I gauge swatched. But for the ribbing, I technically needed a needle size that I did not have. But I finessed it. Where is it? My needles? I put them away. Did I? Where'd they go? Oh, fine. Yeah, I put them in there. Because I didn't have them, I decided I'm going to be a creative engineer problem solver about this. So I took the next needle size I had, which I think was like a 6.5, and I needed, what is it, 7.5? Yeah, I wanted a 7.5. And the next I had was maybe a 6.5 needle size. So what I did is you can kind of see it, I took masking tape and I wrapped it around, and I used this little thing which lets you see different needle hook sizes until it fits the 7.5 spot. And I've been knitting with that. I was very proud of myself for figuring that one out. Although I would say to anyone who wants to do this, I don't think there's no way I'm the first, or even one of the first like 100 people to have tried this, but I would say, because, okay, I didn't want to use a tape that would be damaging to the needles because they are wooden needles, and I'm not sure how adhesive, especially stronger adhesives, would work on it and kind of affect it afterwards. But if you do whatever tape that is, I use regular masking tape. If you do some sort of other tape like that, I'd recommend maybe covering it. So not doing the complete width that you need, but then covering it with, like, say packaging tape, something that's very, like, things would glide over really easy. Because especially for this yarn, I have to like wiggle each stitch when it's on the needle, on and off the needle, to actually use it. It is a bit of a pain. But I was able to figure that one out. And I will be done with it soon. I will hopefully show you the finished project next episode. But for now, that's it. I was able to make progress though, which is good. And then next work in progress is another test knit. So this is the beginnings. Hold on, let me see where the front is. Kind of, or right side. This is what I have so far of a cardigan. So this, oh, it looks so wonky. Yeah, that's my bad. But this is designed by Lucy, Lucy Hand Stitched over on Instagram. I saw her finished piece and kind of tester call on Instagram on my Explore feed, and I thought it looked really cute. So I kind of applied on a whim, not really expecting anything from it, and then I realized I got in. So I went to my local yarn store, bought appropriate yarn as fast as I could, and then basically started knitting it up in like a frenzy while I was waiting for the yarn to arrive for my Whitmage pullover, because this is a later deadline than that. It's a very simple lacework pattern that just kind of like repeats over and over again, so you can't get the hang of it. I think anyone with decent memory can just get it in their head and not have to look at the pattern pretty quickly, honestly. And it's honestly kind of just like fun to knit. This is a slightly thinner yarn weight than I'm used to working with. I'm not sure what I typically work with, but these are on, 3.5 millimeter needles, and I think I generally go for 4 or 4.5. I'm not sure. I think generally though, especially if I pair something with a mohair, then somewhere around that range, if not higher. But yes, I really enjoy working on this. The designer has been so nice in answering my like billion and or whatever how many questions I've had when I'm clarifying things about the pattern or just like the design and how to do different things. Been very great, which I really appreciated, and I'm excited to keep working on it. It's going by pretty quickly, but I did notice that the sort of hem that goes around the entire cardigan, from what it looks like you pick up that however many stitches and then you knit a few however many rows, several rows of ribbing. And picking up and knitting that long thing is definitely going to be a bit of a slog at the very least. So we'll see how that goes, but that test deadline is also much further back. I've nearly complete confidence I'm going to meet it, so that's fine. What else was I going to mention? Oh yes, the yarn that I used is Berroco Remix Light in the colorway Strawberry, and I'm knitting a size 2 for this, by the way, so the second size. The yarn I used, it is a really pretty red color, which I like, and strawberry, it's cute, but it's got these like little things mixed in. I'm not sure really what it is or what you would call it. Actually, maybe you can see it better in this skein. Which I don't mind, but I don't know, it's kind of like tweed-esque. I don't know what, whatever. But I do worry that for some of it, because some of them like are bigger pieces than others, that it kind of obscures the lacework pattern and that it makes it look a little bit less clear. I'm not really sure. There's not really a whole lot I can do about it now, besides I guess just when the piece is done, pick out any pieces that really bother me. But we'll see. I believe that is that for that. Oh, last thing, really quick, because it is a very unique design though, which I think is really pretty. This is, I think, my second ever cardigan, and the structure of it, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it's bottom up, and it doesn't have that like straight down kind of front side hem. I'm not sure, you know, when you wear a cardigan or a jacket, the front panels are like straight down. This one isn't, it's curved. It curves at the bottom, which is really pretty. And I believe High Fiber Knits mentioned it in most recent knitting podcast episode, kind of giving it like a little mention as like a very unique design, which I was like, hey, I'm working on that while I'm watching that video, which I thought was kind of cute. But yes, I highly recommend. I'm excited to finish it, and I will link her down below, her Instagram down below, and I'll try to come back to this video and add in a link for the pattern as well when it comes out, but I'm not sure. Either way, you should be able to get to it if you go to her Instagram page. And there is not yet a name for this cardigan, but I'm sure whenever it'll come out, it'll be cute. So keep an eye out for that. Technically, that's it for work in progress. Recent acquisitions, really quick, is I previously mentioned in the first episode, big jobs yarn order. So as you can see, it's a lot. I wasn't kidding. I meant it when I said about a lot, and it was going to be a big order. So I bought a bunch of Puna, Flora, and soft tweed. So the Puna and the soft tweed are both going to be used for the sporty knit skirt sets that I'm planning to make. In Florence's most recent knitting podcast episode, she mentioned that they had to do some adjusted sizing or change some of the stitch count for a different sizing for the skirt. So the pattern release is expected to be mid to late October, which technically works out well with what I've got on my needles right now when those are due, because they're due like early and mid October. Although I think I am going to finish a little bit ahead of time for definitely the homage pullover, most likely for the cardigan, but we'll see. So I will be using that for that. And it is a lot. I it's easy to click the numbers on the computer, but then seeing it in person and having these huge just amounts of yarn is like, wow, it's a lot. My dad assured me I have no doubt you'll use it all, so I think I'm flattered by that. Regardless, I'm excited to use it, but I can't do anything with that yet, and there is no exact start date when I know I can, but we'll see. And then for future projects, so something small is I'm planning to make a sort of like pouch bag mini, yeah, it's a pouch thing for my friend who's I'm celebrating her birthday in a couple weeks. I'm probably just gonna crochet something based off like a YouTube tutorial maybe, and if I show it in the next episode then I'll link whatever I end up using, but that's kind of, I can wrap that or whip that up really quickly, so there's not a whole lot of pressure I have for that, and I definitely have a lot of time for that because it is in a couple weeks and I think I could finish it in like a few hours, so that's all okay. I already mentioned the sporty knit skirt sets. Nice. Okay. Sorry, I am definitely going through my list right now. Oh, okay. So these two kind of involve each other. Is that I'm following the hashtag test knitters wanted, test knitters needed, one of those two, on Instagram, and I saw this one's like chunky sweater, like super chunky, and it looked so cozy, and I was like, that's perfect for like super cold weather. Like, oh, it was just so great. And I DM'd the designer asking for more information about test knitting, and kind of curious of like when the deadline was, because I'm already technically working on two right now, even though one of them is almost done. When I DM'd the designer, which was a couple days ago, I hadn't even received the extra yarn yet, so I didn't know when I was going to be finishing that up. And I also didn't expect myself to have finished an entire sleeve and some of the body yesterday. So I think the initial deadline was kind of expected mid-October, which I think technically if I had the yarn and I started right away, I could meet. But because I'm working on other test knits and I would have to order yarn, I don't have yarn, chunky yarn, especially not a sweater's quantity, then I probably would be able to meet that deadline. So I kind of said, I don't think I'll be able to meet it, but I love the pattern and I'm going to be keeping an eye out for when it is officially released. And then the designer got back to me saying, it's not super strict, would you be still open to test knitting if it was like a longer time period or a later deadline? So I kind of tried to figure out what is the latest deadline I could meet realistically, because I have a lot of family birthdays and then Christmas presents that I should start working on. I have 3 family members whose birthdays are November, December, then January, and then I have to do Christmas presents for 4 people. I think at the very least for definitely 1, maybe 2 or even all 3 of the birthdays, I can kind of go easy on any handmade gifts. We'll see, but for Christmas, if you're a family member watching this, don't watch unless you want to ruin the surprise. This will be the last thing I mention in this video, so don't worry, you're not missing anything. But if you're not a family member, or you are a family member who wants to know what I'm planning, yes, let's keep going. I was thinking, and I don't know how, like, cringy, I don't know what the word for it is, but making everyone a sweater. They technically would be matching sweaters because they'd all be made from the same pattern, but it's not like I would do like a very simple sweater pattern, so that way it's not like so in your face, we are a matching set, but it might still be, I don't know. Anyways, I was kind of thinking about doing actually basically just 4 more of these step-by-step sweaters so that I have one that matches with them. It's totally going to be matching sweaters. Yeah, it's inevitable. The only problem is I would need to get yarn for that. Either that or I use some somewhat cheap acrylic yarn that I still have in stash that I just don't really use because I prefer other yarns for garments, and that's I usually make garments these days. I'm not sure. I'm going to kind of float the idea to my sister, see what she thinks about it, if certain family members would mind or if they would prefer that, because it's a lot easier to machine wash and take care of and you don't need to be so careful with it. I'm not sure. I'll see. But even still, I think I have some yarn I could use. I did mention, I think, last episode that I was unraveling a sweater to reuse that yarn. And so this is when the yarn's caked up, or when the section's caked up. So it's like a green, blue, I believe it's a cotton linen mix. I don't imagine it'll be the greatest to work with, honestly speaking. Even in the sweater, it was, I think, pilling a little bit, which is kind of how I justified getting a large size, because it was a large sweater. I got it at the thrift store. But it seemed to be in okay quality otherwise, and, there was some decent sections of just yarn. I don't know how to describe it. If you unravel, you kind of get what I'm talking about, like a big chunk. That's just yarn. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I was thinking I could maybe use this yarn to make one sweater at least, but then I'd have to make, what is it, 2 more? Can I add? Yes, 2 more. I'm not sure what yarn I would use for that if I don't use my in-stash leftover scraps of acrylic yarn. Which, like, a colorful sweater could be kind of cute, but I don't know if that's what I want to do. I'm not sure. And because of that, because I need to figure out what yarn I want to use for that, and also I need to start that fairly early, because even if I'm generous, or even if I'm not generous with my time, and I say a week per sweater, that's 4 sweaters, that's 4 weeks. Let's say, even, so, what is it, mid-November? November? Yeah, mid-November, I need to start the sweaters. If I'm doing the test knit that I want to do, that's cutting it a little close. I'm not sure. And because I'm not sure what other yarn to use if I were to do that test knit besides what the designer used, which is, Drop Swish, which is kind of on the pricey side. Especially since I can't, well, even if I were to buy it directly and I didn't have to pay for shipping or anything, because I think it is still on sale right now, it's still pretty pricey. It's chunky yarn, and you need a lot of it to have a sweater's quantity, and it's like a pretty intricate design, so you do need a little bit more yarn than just like straight stockinette. That's a decent amount of money, and like I showed earlier, I bought a pretty big amount of yarn recently, and I also had to buy a few more skeins of that to finish my homage pullover, and that's pretty pricey yarn too. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not really sure if I can justify buying both, like more yarn to do stuff for my family and a lot of yarn to do a test knit, even if I really do love the test knit. I feel like the cautious and maybe financially responsible thing to do is to just decline working on the test knit and try to do stuff from the stash for family gifts, but I really don't know. I really do love the pattern. I just thought it was so pretty. I went through the Instagram page of the designer, and I loved, they make a bunch of other chunky sweaters too, which are also super cute. But I especially love the like turtleneck one. I don't know. But that is technically in the future. I'm focusing just on finishing the homage pullover and then working a lot on the cardigan by Lucy hand stitched in the meantime. Although I should get back to the design about the test knit soon. I don't know. I'll think about it. Went over a lot in this video apparently. It is a hefty length. Definitely longer than last time. But it'll be fine. Thank you for watching, if you managed to watch all the way through. Really appreciate it. And thank you if you also watched the first episode. And if you left a comment, especially, thank you. I'm really grateful. That is it, I think. Let me check really quick. covered over everything, and I think I said everything that I wanted to say. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. So again, if you want to follow me on Instagram, and I think you can follow people on Ravelry. There's like a little button thing. I'm not entirely sure. I think I saw something. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, same username. My DMs are always open if you want to talk, ask any questions, clarify anything, anything like that. Yes. I will, like I mentioned, I'll probably be back in 2-ish weeks, hopefully with finished homage pullover and a good amount of progress on the cardigan. And maybe a couple of other things started at the very least. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. If you're working on something, I hope you made good progress while you're listening to me ramble for almost 38 minutes. Yes, I will see you next time. Bye bye.